We have to change that subject.
Convention has changed. We communicate in a different way. We have a different reality here now.
The stock market doesn't necessarily reflect the state of the economy, as you well know. And the economy's still strong, unemployment's low, jobs are up, manufacturing's good. So I think we're going to be fine.
Are you worried about the inflation number, though, sir?
No, I'm not, because we're talking about 0.1% of 1%, and anyway.
Maryland now working 2 jobs to cover the cost of gas.
But when you look at the year over year and you want to know why people are still complaining, that gas index is still up 44%.
The result was the sharpest bout of inflation observed in more than 4 decades in the States.
Inflation Nation. Americans are paying significantly more for basics such as food, fuel, and rent.
When I hear people talk about inflation, as I heard him there, we have to change that subject.
That's right, Whit. A year ago, the national price for a gallon of milk was $3.49. Now it's around $4.20, depending on where you live, a 20% increase. These higher costs across the board are part of why all Americans are feeling the pinch.
What are some of the biggest increased costs that we're seeing, Sarah?
One that will not surprise you really driving this, the cost of gas. That is up 60% from a year ago, 11% in June. Energy costs up across the board.
Basically just got struggle food and some popsicles.
The Consumer Price Index rose 8.6% in May to a new 40-year high and signaled that price pressures may be here for a while.
Reduce inflation by stopping this runaway, spending that Congress has had in the last 2 years. That's number one.
Still seeing very sticky high inflation on the things we have to pay for every day. So even the Bureau of Labor Statistics points out housing, shelter, food, medical costs all rising. We're seeing medical care costs up 3.7% on an annual rate here. Electricity, 15.5%, and that's only going to get higher as we head into winter. Food at home, 13%. These are just the unavoidable costs that we have, and these keep rising and staying sticky high month after month.
Our economy is strong as hell.
Data speaks for itself. President Biden took office. Since then, the average American family has lost $6,000 in purchasing power due to inflation. Monthly savings have collapsed 83%. The average 401k is down $34,000.
When I hear people talk about inflation, as I heard him there, we have to change that subject.
That their legislative achievements are fairly scant. They blame 2 Democratic senators for that, or Mitch McConnell. No one cares about that inside baseball talk. All the public knows is what the Biden administration, almost 2 years old now, is known for is inflation.
We have to change that subject.
The president is going to get out there, as we have said multiple times, to make sure that he's talking directly to the American people.
Our economy is strong as hell.
About how we are delivering on our promises, delivering on how we're really taking inflation seriously.
The nation could be teetering on the edge of a recession. How will the White House prepare for that?
So, want to be clear, there are no meetings or anything happening like that in preparing for a recession.
On how we're really taking inflation seriously.
There are no meetings or anything happening like that in preparing for a recession.
Both of us probably could have used a better term than transitory.
Fuel was up more than 50% in November of 2021. Even prices for used cars were up over 30% year over year in the same time frame.
Credit card balances are up 13% from a year ago. That is the biggest annual pace in more than 2 decades.
Wow.
Both of us probably could have used a better term than transitory.
When I hear people talk about inflation, as I heard him there, we have to change that subject.
Look, we are not in a recession.
Repeat the line.
We are not in a recession. I want to be really, really clear on that.
We have a different reality here now.
Tough numbers to digest this morning from the latest Consumer Price Index report. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says that prices rose 9.1% year over year in the month of June. Now, that's higher than many analysts had predicted.
Meanwhile, inflation is hammering voters ahead of November's midterm elections, like Adele in California, who recently turned to food assistance with grocery prices up 10% in the last year.
My Social Security is what I live on, and sometimes I don't have enough food. But
Food costs soaring this morning. Meats, poultry, fish, and eggs seeing an average increase of more than 14% from last May.
Our economy is strong as hell.
Just remember, gang, before we started this inflationary period, the inflation rate in the United States was just under 2%. So these are big changes.
Well, if you remember nothing from this, remember one thing. If you print money and hand it out, drop it from helicopters, as Friedman said, you will get inflation.
Another part of the budget that's a big problem for folks is the cost of food, another huge component here. That is up 10.4% from a year ago. The cost of groceries specifically up more than 12% from a year ago. And that is the fastest pace since 1979. When you look at all the different food groups, it's up across the board. 5 of the 6 main food groups up by double digits. So these are really painful numbers for people back home.
When I hear people talk about inflation as I heard him there, we have to change that subject.
This is
Oh my.
chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got to restock the ice cream.
Our economy is strong as hell.
We are not in a recession. I want to be really, really clear on that.
The cost of fuel oil up nearly 100% from a year ago. So that is a staggering number. Those are really hitting people.
With Americans trying to do more with less, food banks are feeling the pinch too, also being asked to do more with less.
More Americans than ever are needing this type of assistance. And so we're really quickly migrating from a pandemic crisis to a hunger crisis.
We are not in a recession. I want to be really, really clear on that.
There are no meetings or anything happening like that in preparing for a recession.
Other cost here that is a real big part of people's budgets is the cost of housing. Housing is up 5.6% from a year ago. Specifically looking at rent just last month, that is up 0.8%. That is actually the fastest monthly increase since 1986.
When you think about 5.2% of a wage gain, but inflation's at 8.5%, there's a gap.
There's that gap,
So
yeah.
people are falling behind.
We are not in a recession. I want to be really, really clear on that.
We communicate in a different way. We have a different reality here now.
When I hear people talk about inflation as I heard him there, we have to change that subject.
I'm smart. I know how to game the system.